All right, guys, this is your first civilization that we're studying. This is Rome. And Rome has influenced so much of our society today, it might blow your mind to find out how much it actually has influenced. But before we get there, let's start at the beginning. Let's take a look at how I expect you guys to perform and copy down these notes. So when you copy these notes down, I expect you on a separate piece of paper to write a line down the left side of your paper. If you've never done this before, it's not hard. There's that red line on your line paper. Go maybe like an inch in from that line. On the left side, you're going to be writing the main idea or question or statement that I have there for you. While straight across from that, you're going to be writing down your notes. And you'll see how this is done. It's very simple, and it's formatted for you. Make sure to leave a little spot here at the top for the essential question, because there's going to be an EQ for every set of notes, and you're going to answer the EQ with your summary. So it's very important that you have the EQ down so that you know what you're trying to write about in your summary when you're done with all these notes. So the EQ here is, how did Rome become an empire? So go ahead and write that down. I'm going to go at my own pace, so if you need to pause the video, you're more than welcome to at any time. How did Rome become an empire? So first, let's talk about what is an empire. An empire is a political system. It's like a government where it has leaders and it has laws, because that's what government is all about. It's all about laws and taxes. Taxes and laws. Laws to help keep people civil and safe. Taxes to help support financially the government and the people. So an empire is a sovereign, which means to have complete control. It's a sovereign political system in control of an extremely large area. So if we were to say, if Bakersfield was ruled by one person, it couldn't be an empire because it's not large enough. Empires are typically very, very large. So an empire is a sovereign political system in control of a very large area, but it's ruled by one sovereign leader, and that leader is known as an emperor. So that is an empire. And it sounds very similar to a kingdom, and it is. There's a few differences, though. Kingdoms are typically smaller, and usually leadership is passed down to the oldest son. That isn't necessarily the case in an empire. Before we get into how Rome became an empire, let's start at the beginning. Where did Rome come from? Well, truth is, we don't really know. We don't know exactly how Rome got started because it's kind of shrouded in legend. And Roman legend says that around 771 BC, Rome was established by two brothers. Their names, Romulus and Remus. Now, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because you could look that up and check out the story. It's pretty interesting. Basically, Romulus and Remus were born of a mother who was not supposed to have those kids. She was not supposed to have any children. And as a result of her having children, her and her father lost their kingdom. And the children were destined to be put down to death. But she saved them by sending them down the river. Sound familiar? Kind of like Moses, right? She sends them down the river, and they float down the river for several miles until they finally come to an area of an embankment on the river. And they're just little babies, right? They are completely defenseless. They can't do anything. They can't defend themselves. They have nothing to eat. they are susceptible to being taken, captured, and even eaten by anything that comes by them. I mean, they are defenseless. They're sitting in there, they're probably crying, wah, 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 right? Like little babies do. And so they're sitting there, and out of the woods comes a she-wolf, female wolf, who smells the babies. And then she hears the babies. And she crawls close to the area where she smells them and hears them. And she gets really close, and she sees these two little babies, and she feeds them. She feeds the babies. She gives them milk they need, and she takes care of them, helps them kind of grow up a little bit until the babies, Romulus and Remus, the twin brothers, are discovered by some shepherds. They're taken by the shepherds, and they're raised up by the shepherds. Romulus and Remus, they grow up, and the thing about Romulus and Remus is that they're demigods. They were born, their father was the god of war, or also known as Mars. And they went and got revenge for their mother and reestablished the kingdom, and then they came back to where they lived with the shepherd. That story is not really all that important for our purposes. After they avenge their mom, then they go back to their home, where they decide to establish their own city. Well, both the twins start fighting over where to build this city, and so Remus, or Romulus, builds up a wall to start his city in the area that he wants to build it. Remus makes fun of Romulus's wall, and what he does is he basically says, "That's not a wall. Anyone can go over that wall." So he jumps over the wall to make fun of Romulus's wall. Once he does that, the two boys start fighting each other in a sword dueling contest. And eventually Remus, he starts to lose the battle, and he is struck down and dies. Romulus is guilt-stricken for the death of his brother, and he buries his brother. And he moves on, and he builds the city he had planned on building, and he calls it Rome, names it after himself. And that's how legend says that Rome was finally built and established. Rome was eventually built up to be a republic. It started off as a kingdom, and then eventually converted to a republic. What is a republic? A republic is a government where the people, they vote for their leaders. Those leaders are called senators. And then those senators hang out in a room where they talk about the needs of the people. It's kind of like what you see here in this picture. So you have this guy in the middle, and he sits there and he basically tries to convince all these other senators who are in charge of other areas to basically do something that he thinks the people need. And he basically says, "We need laws, 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 and laws." Or they say taxes, 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 right? We need new taxes to build up the new aqueducts, or we need new laws because something's happening that the people that's making it unsafe for the people. So it's all about taxes and laws. And these guys are the ones that basically create those taxes and laws. Hopefully this sounds a little familiar to you, because this is kind of exactly what we do, right? We have a Senate, and they get together in a room and they discuss taxes and laws, right? These guys were the first ones to do that. It's kind of where we get it from. But that is basically what a republic is. We are a republic. We are a democratic republic, meaning we